All right, in the house, we got Joey Young, the turf doctor from Texas Tech University Plant and Soil Sciences. Welcome to the program. He walks in here this morning and he says, "Is it lonely up here?"
It looks a little lonely up here.
Because Lori Jo Mack's not here.
It looks a little lonely.
So he's playing bench warmer today, keeping her seat warm.
There you go.
All right, here we are. We really haven't had a rash of what we would call hot temperatures, and I think everybody's kind of like worn out, petered out, because, even the 90s, feel like they've been, just brutal.
Yeah, it does. It does feel very, very warm outside. There's no question about that. But it has been a relatively mild type of summer.
Okay, so as we're approaching fall,
yep,
it is time now, I guess, to prepare for certain things. One of those would be if you're anticipating planting cool season grass. Now, that stuff, that's cool season grass is like fescue and stuff, it's a water hog. So, you don't necessarily want to plant it in full sunshine.
That's correct. Yes. So if you do plant it in full sunshine, then yes, it is going to be a water hog. However,
you're going to have the water bill from hell.
However, if you plant it where it should be planted, which would be a pretty shady area, you can get by with very limited amounts of water. Probably very similar to what you would see with Bermuda grass in full sun. The amount of water is going to be pretty comparable, maybe even a little bit less depending on the amount of sunshine, how exposed the area is to wind and, temperature and all those different things. So I have some tall fescue that I planted last fall in my yard, a couple of shady spots, like between the house where you get very limited to any sun at all. It's grown in very well, and I think other than watering it to get it established, I haven't really watered it at all. Granted, we have had, 23 inches of
like
rain
twice
now.
the rain we normally get.
So it's not to say that in a normal quote-unquote year that it would not need any water. However, it needs very limited amounts of water, and it's growing in a place where it should be growing.
Okay, so if you're thinking about planting this, you were saying now's the time to start considering it.
Right.
Start like laying out the battle plan, because it's not something you can just decide one morning, wake up and say, I think I'm going to plant me some fescue.
Right, and a lot of people may think that would be the case, but if you really want it to be successful, you need to start planning now. Start thinking about getting the soil ready.
Do tell.
Get the soil ready. So if you have an area that has any kind of grass cover on it that needs to be gone, now's the time to start thinking about spraying it with a non-selective herbicide like Roundup or something that's going to kill anything and everything that's there. That's going to give you a little bit of time for that product to become active and really get rid of any grass that's present there, or any weeds or anything that you're trying to get rid of. So do that very soon, and then you have some time to kind of prepare the soil, maybe do some tilling, raking, get rid of all that leaf material, and then probably around Labor Day to the middle of September is kind of the optimum time to be trying to seed some tall fescue or a cool season grass in a shady spot.
All right, now if you're going to spray that Roundup or whatever that you're doing to clear the ground, I know people want to get aggressive, because they're thinking they want to pull out the. See, I texted you last Sunday afternoon. Mm-hmm. I was saying, what do I need, man? I want the big gun.
Yep.
But the thing is some of the stuff you spray and doesn't it kind of sterilize the ground?
Okay, yeah, that's a great point. So you, in this case, if you're just trying to kind of clean up some tissue that's already there, but you want to replant into it pretty quickly, then you probably just want to make sure that you're getting Roundup or a product that's just glyphosate. That doesn't, look for at the front of the bottle, look for those things that say like extended control and. You don't want that. You don't want that one, because those have products in them that are more like pre-emerges that would prevent the onslaught of more weeds, which is beneficial in some cases. But in this case, you want to make sure that your seed can germinate whenever you put it out in September. So, but we're getting very close to that time, and if you already have tall fescue, for instance, in a shady spot in your lawn where it's, doing well, September is going to be your first real opportunity to start getting fertilizer on the yard. That's kind of your prime time. Fall, you want to do the majority of your fertilizing in that time. So just start thinking about those things. We're not quite there yet. It's still warm, but we're getting close, and we want people to start thinking about proper management practices for the fall.
Okay. Pregunta. Question. If you're spraying Roundup, how long do you have to wait before you try and seed something? I mean, you can't like spray this week and plant next week, can you?
Roundup does actually degrade. There are soil microbes that will degrade the chemical that Roundup is in the soil itself. So I probably would not recommend spraying and then planting the next week. No, but you can do that pretty quickly after, because the chemical gets. Again, that's just the glyphosate itself. So if you have a product that has multiple chemicals in it, you need to check the label. And the label is always going to tell you how much time you need between spraying and when you can seed something.
Okay, now Roundup is most effective, or the chemical in Roundup, which is
glyphosate.
Glyphosate.
Yes.
When the temperatures are not just hot, like in spring and in fall when it's a little more moderate.
Well, that's true, but the fall is really your go-to time, and the reason for that, it's a systemic type herbicide, so that means that the chemical enters the plant and moves in the plant. And
because the sugars are more active, traveling up and down through the plant.
Right, but in the fall, there's a lot more movement downward to the roots and the stems and the rhizomes and all those different places, because the plant is getting ready to go into dormancy, or things are slowing down. So you have a lot more downward movement as opposed to upward movement that you're going to see in the spring of the year. So you're going to get much more effective control of any kind of plant. If you're trying to kill Bermuda grass in your yard with Roundup, do it in the fall.
Does the same hold true with like weed control and stuff like that? So you're better off, like, it's more effective
if it's a systemic type of herbicide. If it's just a contact herbicide where it just coats the leaf and then it kills the plant, then it really isn't going to matter that much. The main thing there is you want an actively growing plant, which is always important anyways. You don't want to spray, if you spray a plant that's drought stressed heavily with Roundup or any kind of product, it's not going to be as effective as if it's actively growing. Of course, also if the weed or plant that you're trying to control is a little bit smaller, it's going to be a lot more effective as opposed to a giant pigweed or something that's as tall as I am.
Right, I get it. Okay, Joey Young, turf doctor, Texas Tech University, Plant and Soil Sciences. I guess you guys are getting ready for fall semester, huh?
Yeah, it's just right around the corner.
All right, thanks for coming in, man.